Today, let's dive into one of the most incredible military and political feats in Mughal history, the total conquest of Bengal. Now, this was a task that had stumped generals for decades, and yet one man managed to pull it off, and his story, well, it's basically a masterclass in strategy, ruthlessness, and building a state from the ground up.
So here's the big question, right? How on earth do you conquer a province that's basically the size of a country in just 5 years? I mean, you're dealing with a huge, swampy, river-filled land, packed with powerful warlords and rebels who know the terrain. It sounds completely impossible, doesn't it?
Well, in 1608, the Mughal Emperor Jahangir had just the man for the job. He sent a governor named Khan to Bengal. And this guy, he wasn't just another general. He was a true master strategist, and he had a plan to solve this puzzle once and for all. Let's get into how he did it.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at just how unruly Bengal really was. Then, we'll see how he took down the so-called 12 chieftains. After that, a little drama involving a treacherous ally. Then, the final showdown with the last major rebel. And, to wrap it all up, how he built a brand new capital to seal the deal. Let's jump in. So, let's set the scene. When Islam Khan shows up in 1608, Bengal is technically a Mughal province, but really that's just on paper. In reality, it's a chaotic, rebellious frontier, and it is miles away from being under any kind of real imperial control.
And this slide really says it all. Look at how little territory the Mughals actually held. Their authority was pretty much limited to the capital, Rajmahal, and a few scattered military outposts. That's it. The rest of Bengal was a giant patchwork of independent chieftains, and each of them had their own army.
And yet, from this incredibly weak starting point, Islam Khan was going to conquer and unify the entire province in just 5 years. It just gives you a sense of the sheer scale of what he was about to pull off.
His first, and by far his biggest target, was a powerful coalition of local warlords, often called the 12 chieftains. Their leader was a man named Musa Khan, and believe me, this guy was the heart and soul of the resistance.
And this is where you really start to see his strategic genius at work. Islam Khan didn't just charge headfirst in a battle. No, his plan was methodical. First, he peeled away the smaller chieftains to isolate his main enemy. Then, he sent a smaller force on a fake attack towards Dhaka to distract Musa Khan. Only then did he launch his real attack, a massive coordinated assault by land and river, aimed right at Musa's main fortress.
But Musa Khan was not going down easy. He hit back with everything he had. And when I say everything, I mean a massive fleet of 700 warboats. This was it. This was the decisive moment of the campaign.
The fighting was absolutely brutal, with huge losses on both sides. But in the end, Islam Khan's superior tactics won the day. The Mughal forces smashed through Musa Khan's defenses, forcing him to abandon his forts and run. And with their leader gone, his powerful alliance of warlords just crumbled. They surrendered one after the other. And talk about a complete reversal of fortune. Before the campaign, Musa Khan was the undisputed leader of the resistance. Afterwards, he was a surrendered chieftain. His massive navy was absorbed into the Mughal fleet, and he himself was kept under close watch in Islam Khan's court. Just like that, the main resistance in Bengal was broken.
Okay, let's move on to the next chapter. This one is less about big battles and more about personal betrayal. And it's all about a guy named Raja Pratapaditya of Jessore, a really powerful chieftain who, at first, had actually pledged his loyalty to the Mughals.
See, Pratapaditya had made a solemn oath. He promised to back Islam Khan's campaign against Musa Khan. He promised his army, his loyalty, and maybe, most importantly, 400 warboats for the Mughal navy. But when the time came to deliver, he broke his word.
Pratapaditya tried to smooth things over. He sent his son with a fleet of 80 boats as a sort of apology. But Islam Khan was not in a forgiving mood. He had those boats destroyed and immediately launched a full-scale invasion of Pratapaditya's kingdom from 2 directions. The message was crystal clear. Disloyalty will be crushed. No exceptions.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. In a lot of Bengali folklore and literature, Pratapaditya is remembered as this great patriotic hero, a freedom fighter standing up to invaders. But the historical sources, they paint a very different picture. They show a powerful but ultimately self-serving chieftain who broke a sworn oath.
So, with the main chieftains defeated, there was really only one major military threat left on the board, a veteran Pathan warlord named Musa Khan. He was the last of the old guard, the final obstacle standing in the way of total Mughal control.
And at first, it looked like the Mughals had finally bitten off more than they could chew. In a major battle at a place called Dhalampur, Musa Khan's forces delivered a stunning victory. The Mughal army was completely defeated and was in full retreat.
I mean, this was a moment of absolute crisis. After years of brilliant strategy and ruthless campaigning, was the whole thing about to fall apart at the very last second? And then, history turned on a dime. In the middle of his victory, as his forces were winning the day, Musa Khan was struck and killed by a single stray enemy shot. It's an absolutely incredible twist of fate.
Without their charismatic leader, the Pathan army just fell apart. They lost all will to fight. That very night, they abandoned the battlefield. Usman's family tried to keep the resistance going, but it was useless. The final insurgency collapsed, almost literally, overnight.
So, the fighting was finally over. But you know, conquering a place is one thing. Actually governing it is a whole different ballgame. Islam Khan's final act was maybe his most important one, because it was all about making his victory permanent.
This timeline just shows you the relentless pace he worked at. He arrives in 1608. By 1612, every single major rival is off the board. And in that same year, he makes a huge strategic decision. He moves the capital. The final piece of the puzzle falls into place in 1613 with the conquest of Kurup.
He moved the capital from the old city of Rajmahal all the way to Dhaka, and he renamed it Jahangirnagar, the city of Jahangir. Now, this wasn't just a symbolic gesture. Dhaka was in a much better strategic location to control the rivers of eastern Bengal and to fight off pirates. It was a move that would shape the future of the entire region for centuries.
So there you have it. In 5 short years, Islam Khan took Bengal from a rebellious frontier and turned it into a stable, integrated part of the Mughal Empire. What's crazy is he never personally led an army into a single battle, but his strategy was just flawless. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. Was he a brilliant administrator who brought peace and order? A ruthless conqueror who crushed anyone in his way? Or was he, as history so often shows us, both? What do you think?